Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. For many Americans, making their home energy efficient is good for their budget. But is it worth spending money today for savings tomorrow? Today we're talking about making your home energy efficient with industry expert, Cheryl King. Welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, is it worth it? I mean, I do want to pay less in utilities. I don't want to pay any more for my water than I have to. But it seems like sometimes I have to spend money so I can save money. But I've heard you say, no, there's a lot of great things like manufacturer rebates, like tax credits, federal and state, and including utilities are even involved in this in giving you back a credit. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the market. Give me the overview first, and then let's get down to some of the detail.
Okay, sure. Yes, a lot of people think that going green costs money, and actually it's not about going green, it's about saving energy. And saving energy is something that happens on day one. If you change your light bulbs, for example, from the incandescent light bulbs, that's a 60 kilowatt hour bulb, to a 14 kilowatt hour LED, and you're paying 8 cents a kilowatt hour, you're saving on day one. And then when you add to that the fact that the utility companies are offering rebates, the manufacturers are offering rebates, and there are federal and state tax credits, it's a no-brainer. It's saving money made easy.
Well, I'm looking at several areas. I mean, first of all, the big one, heating and air conditioning. I mean, there's some serious money to be had there. These new technologies of HVAC are, I mean, unbelievably efficient. The new stuff that's out, manufacturers, just wonderful.
Yes, they are. I mean, we've seen clients lower their utility bills 50% just from putting in a new air conditioner. Wow. And then when you, again, here in Arizona, there's a $250 rebate from your utility company. If you put this into service last year, the IRS will give you a $500, up to a $500 tax credit. Mm-hmm. So again, there are multiple ways to save. You save on your electric bill and then tax credits.
Now, I've also seen now insulation, you know, people, I was looking at one of your stats. It talks about insulation can save you up to 20% on your heating and cooling systems, and 44% of your monthly bill is going to heating and air conditioning. So is your home really insulated?
Right. Well, and even new homes. A lot of people have the view that if they bought a new home, it's insulated, they don't need to worry about it. Your insulation actually settles 1 to 3% a year. So it's good to have,
it's important.
It is, it's very important to have, and an energy audit will tell you. They'll bring an infrared camera in and they'll look at your home and they'll see just how insulated your home really is.
Well, everybody's probably wondering in our audience, Steve, why are you talking about real estate and homes? Well, because most Americans, the home is their largest investment. And there's so many tax credits and if you're a fiduciary and you're the quarterback of your client's concerns, you really want to have some of this information that we have. It's really deep knowledge, and I think it's a way to cut yourself out of the pack as a regular financial advisor by incorporating the tax credits, federal and state. And then not only that, but the utility rebates, and this next one, how efficient, we talked about how efficient HVAC is, how about stove? How about a refrigerator unit? I mean, these things have become so effective and efficient, and it really can lower your bill as well.
Okay, so for refrigerators can cost you 20% of your electric bill every month. So it really makes sense to go and purchase a new refrigerator. Again, you start saving on day one, and then here in Arizona, for example, APS will pick up the refrigerator, your old refrigerator, dispose of it properly, and send you a check for $30.
Just for taking it out of your house.
Just for taking it out of your house.
Now, I was really surprised. One of the statistics that you talked about, it's an interesting fact, is that 25% of my electric bill is my lights. Man, I want to start flicking things off. Or have those, when you walk into a room, it goes on. When you walk out of a room, it has a timer, it goes off. How effective is this new technology?
Oh, it's very effective, and that's all these little things add up on your monthly electric bill. And it's not just the amount of kilowatts that are being used by your light bulbs, but the more energy efficient light bulbs heat your room up less. So then your air conditioner doesn't have to run as hard to cool the room because of the lighting.
So I have a lot of lights on in the house with my AC. I'm actually being counterproductive.
Exactly.
For my air conditioning. Well, I'm all about that here. Now, you know, before we go to the break, I want to just kind of give us an introduction. You know, solar's been really big in the news, good and bad, depending upon what side of the fence you're on politically. Right. But here, even in our state of Arizona, they have been giving, huge tax credits, and there's incentives to go solar. And we're the state where the sun shines 322 days of the year. So it's important to know. Give me just a little introduction to solar, and then we'll go to the break and come back and talk about it.
There are great tax benefits to going solar, and what I'd like to share with your listeners today is the difference between leasing and purchasing, because that's the #1 question that I get.
When we come back from the break, we're going to ask you about that. Is it better to lease or is it better to own? We'll come right back with Cheryl King, expert in this field, right after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back to our second segment. I'm with industry expert Cheryl King. We're talking about making your home energy efficient, and we're now going to what I call not only politically charged, but now there's some money to be had here depending upon if you buy or lease. Why don't you give me the yin and the yang, the tale of two cities? Should I lease solar? Should I buy solar?
Well, and that's a question I receive very often. Leasing is very attractive because the leasing company pays for the system, they maintain the system, but what you're giving up your federal tax credit, your state tax credit, your utility rebate, and it also may make your home more difficult to sell. Because when you have a lease, it's not part of the home, and the buyer not only has to qualify for the mortgage, but they have to qualify to assume the lease. And the credit standards are much higher on assuming the lease. So we've actually seen in a leased home where they've had to lower the price and buy out the solar system because the buyer couldn't qualify for the lease. So
wow.
I'm a big fan of buying your system versus leasing it.
Okay, now you mentioned that if we are going to buy, it may cost us $25,000 to put a complete solar system up. Now we're going to get some of that money back. Tell me how I'm going to get some money back.
Okay, so right off the top, you'll receive a 30% federal tax credit, which expires in 2016. So we have a couple of years to take advantage of that. So that's $7,500 back. The state credit is 10%, so that's another $2,500. And then your utility rebate varies. In some states, it's as much as 50%.
What is it here?
So here, it's 50% of the cost. So if you just look at your $10,000 that you're receiving in federal and state credits, that comes right off the top. So for example, if you had a $10,000 tax liability, you wouldn't have to write a check for that. Or if you had a $5,000 tax liability, you'd receive $5,000 in a refund.
Okay, so that's my tax credit now, and you said the utility is going to do something as well on top of that?
Yes, on top of that, they will give you a 50% rebate. So that's another $12,000.
Now, I've heard, and I want you to walk me through this, Cheryl, because this is enticing. You know, what you just said, now there's some good incentives here. If I go solar and I don't use, and I produce more in electricity with my solar than I use in my house, do I actually get a check for giving it back to the grid?
You do, and it varies. It's really fun. You can watch the meter, the electric meter, go backwards.
There's a new subject for retirement.
And it varies by the utility company. Sometimes it's a credit on your utility bill. Sometimes it's an annual check. It varies. But yes, you receive money that way. And then you're also, you're in most cases not getting an electric bill. Or instead of that $300 electric bill, it's $50. Depends on, how much energy you use and the size of the system.
Is solar really powerful enough to run my air conditioner?
Yes.
Is it powerful enough to do my refrigerator, my stove, my electric stove, all my lights, my computers at home, my stereo? I mean, I'm just trying to think of everything all in.
Yeah, well, and that's why the first step is really have an energy audit done of your home. Make your home energy efficient so that you know you're buying the right size system. That's always a question. How many kilowatt hours do I need? Have the energy audit done, and then you'll know the size system to buy.
Now, how much does it cost to get an audit?
It ranges. It's between $400 and $600.
To really see what you need?
Yes.
Now, if you're like, for example, yours truly, Steve, is looking for his last home, his retirement home. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a new home. I don't know if it's going to be an existing home. Does that matter when we're talking about solar?
No, it doesn't. And in fact, a lot of people feel they have to buy a new home to have energy efficient. You can make your existing home more energy efficient than a new home.
Now, I noticed I've heard you before because I've had you on other shows. You said something about even windows, changing out your windows will have an advantage, and there could be some rebate manufacturers. And that's another thing we keep forgetting. The manufacturers who are producing this are also doing some rebating.
Exactly, they are. And just sunscreens, you'd be surprised. I have clients that have invested $500 in sunscreens, and they've saved more than that the first year.
So if I'm buying let's say I'm buying my retirement home and I say, okay, I'm going to be living there for the next 20, 30 years. I'm trying to make it my last home. So I'm going to tech it up with all this solar, with all my efficiencies on in insulation. I'm going to do the bulb. I'm going to change out my bulbs as you suggested. Let's say I did that all in. I'm Mr. Eco. I don't want to leave another carbon footprint for the rest of my life. But I also want to be able to say, when am I going to recapture this? Because there's a crossover period for everything. I mean, when you're shelling out $25,000 for solar, I'm getting 10 of that back right away. I'm going to maybe get a check from my utility company if it performs on the grid. But what's my break-even point on a real price tag like that?
Well, again, you're receiving what we haven't talked about yet is the increased value in your home. There are new appraisal guidelines now, so you are entitled to, for every $1,000 of energy you save, it's dollar for dollar. So if you put a $25,000 solar system on your home, it's $25,000 increased value.
Now I understand that if I sold it, right? Because I sell it. But what if I'm going to stay put? I'm Steve, I'm retiring, I'm going to stay put. Am I going to, by the time I take all the manufacturer rebates, credits, tax, both federal and state, utility, and maybe even make a little money from the utility, if I do all that, what can I expect? Is it 6-year turnaround? Is it 7-year break even? When do I start actually paid for it, would you say?
On average, it's 8 to 10 years.
Okay, so let's just go the decade because I can do it in my head. So, because at the beginning of the show, our question is we all see the value of doing this. Is just that as the upfront money that I have to incorporate, and I have to incorporate it in my mortgage, I would think, right? I want to tie this all in.
Right.
So if I go ahead and do all this, I'm going to lower my bill. I'm going to lower my footprint on the earth. I'm going to be eco-friendly. And I really have moved my house into a most effective and efficient by doing all these things we've talked about on the show. Have you seen anybody just go as crazy as I'm talking about?
Oh yes, definitely. And the other thing that I wanted to mention here too in talking about the payback period is a lot of people have FHA loans. In the last couple of years, that's been the most popular form of financing. And as of June of last year, your private mortgage insurance is it's required to be paid during the entire life of the loan. It used to be that once you got to 20% equity, then you could request that they remove that. On average, that's $250 to $350 a month that you're paying. That's not a tax deduction. That doesn't go anywhere but to HUD. So with some of the new funding programs that are available or financing programs, you can refinance your home. If you can remove that $250 to $350 private mortgage insurance payment and replace that with $125 for your solar system, you're still ahead. And to a lot of people, that's a car payment.
Before we leave the show, you even have spoken to me about certain mortgage lenders that actually treat this kind of situation differently than a standard mortgage.
Yes, your savings on the energy is counted as income, which is great without any further down payment in putting these energy improvements in place. If you can finance out your old mortgage that might be, between 5 and 6% to today's current rates, you're saving on your interest rate. There's also a new program that's coming out in about a week where you can not only add the solar system into your home, but you can refinance your credit card debt. So take your 18% credit card down to 4 or 5%, whatever the interest rate would be.
Because you're using some of this solar and so forth like that. Specific to this, though.
Yes, because you're getting the added value in your home. So
that's amazing. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I want to thank Cheryl King for being my very special guest and today's money mentor. And keep in mind, before moving forward, any of the ideas we're talking about, always consult your tax advisor and your legal counsel. Don't forget, you can email me at steve@thenameofthegame.tv. And remember, as the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next week.